Hello, my name's Denise Johnson, and I'm going to talk to you about the history of funeral transportation. First of all, how it all began. Um, in ancient times, mourners would carry their loved ones. They might carry them on a flat wooden frame, um, or they might carry them, put the flat wooden frame on the horse's carriage and let the horses carry them. Um, they then developed the word hearse, which comes from the Middle English hearse, which signified that a candelabra was on top of the coffin in ancient times. Then later on in the 17th century, people started using the word to describe the horse-drawn carriages that transported the caskets to the burial site. The word hearse continued on until present day, whenever it became coach. And as I began working at the funeral home, I was very surprised whenever I would refer to the coach as a hearse. And they would always say, well, pull the funeral coach around. And I was like, what's a funeral coach? Later on, I learned that that is what they call a hearse, which I thought was a very, strange uh, trans transfer of the word, because most outsiders from the funeral world still refer to that vehicle as a hearse. Then the transportation evolved, and in the early 1900s, automobiles started to become a little more common. So the motorized coaches or hearses became a part of the world of the funeral processions. And although the most funeral directors couldn't afford to spend $6,000, imagine $6,000 on a hearse, so they would use the horse-drawn carriage and continue to use it, which was only running about $1,500. Then we moved into the middle 1900s, 1950s, 60s, and hearses evolved as they were purchased as an ambulance slash hearse. And they would be used as ambulances and also as hearses. And they would, could be used for either one. During the late 1970s, the ambulance restrictions became a lot stricter. And so as they became more strict, then there became a division of ambulances versus trying to keep them as one, but to say, okay, this is an ambulance slash this is a hearse. No more of the combinations, because they just felt like that was, something that needed to be divided. Back to the funeral coach. Like I said, they use the horse-drawn carriage. Another thing that people were transported on for funerals was a train. It was like a trolley car, but you could put the body, the casket on there with the body. You could put the families, all the mourners. They could all ride the train together from the funeral home to the graveside. And so that became a little more inexpensive way. Like I said, the carriage was about $1,500, and the coach or the train, people could just rent that, and they didn't have to do an investment into purchasing one. So it was kind of like having a trolley car or a train that you rented to transport the bodies from one place to another. Then we worked into, like I said, the modern day vehicles, and nowadays there are very modern hearses. There's not a specific car company that is like all we make is hearses out there, but there are car lines that have picked that up. Specifically, Cadillac and Lincoln are probably among the most popular that are taking the body of a vehicle, and they're kind of cutting it off about a third of the way back, and taking the gas and brake line. They're extending the length of the vehicle so that it can accommodate the casket, and then they rebuild those lines so that they go all the way through the vehicle and build in the needed features. Now, when you're talking about a hearse, you need features such as rollers. You need the beer pins in the back to move and secure the coffin. And those things are items that must be added on to hearses or coaches so that they can access the caskets. That helps whenever you push the casket out on the church trucks. You're able to push it up onto the back of the casket, onto the back of the hearse or coach, and it slides in. It kind of rolls it in so that you're not having to push it in on the back of the vehicle, and it kind of just hits those rollers and it just slides on in. That makes it a lot easier because a lot of those are very heavy, and to think that you would have to pick it up and then set it inside is almost something that you just don't believe it would work. I think the impact of the change in the hearse brought a whole new transportation level to moving the casket from point A, the funeral home, to point B, the graveside. Cost did increase, but think about the luxury of our hearses and our coaches today. That is an unbelievable luxury. Funeral coach production had begun in the 1900s and early 1900s, and then whenever the World War II broke out, they kind of stopped that and then picked it back up in the late 1900s, 1970. And then now, today, in the world we're in today, we think, okay, where are we headed next with our hearses and coaches? What are we going to do next? And I think what we have come to from looking into the future is electric hearses and coaches. And those electric hearses and coaches are things that are going to be a product of the future. The gas-powered hearses will still be used by many, many people, but we will also have the opportunity to use electric-powered vehicles as well. I gained a lot of this information from the web, but I also gained from text. In the A Walk Through Time, A History of Funeral Service text, Ralph Clicker and Joan Clicker had an interesting section about funeral transportation, so I felt like that was something that I gained a lot of knowledge on. I looked at on the internet at the News Wheel, where I gained information from Whitney Russell. I looked up funeral homes that had specific information about funeral transportation, and Kraus Funeral Home had a history of funeral transportation in their website. I also looked at the history of behind the hearse, from the horse-drawn carriage to today. And that was in Fraser Consultants, which is a company that the funeral home I work for, uses to publicize their obituaries and to do different, their websites and things like that. They use Fraser Consultants. This had a really good, interesting article on history behind the hearse. And lastly, and that was by Jenny Goldade. Lastly, Driving the Dead, A History of the Hearse, was by Rachel O'Sullivan, and it was from an article called talkdeath.com, and it just had a lot of interesting information about the funeral transportation. You know, as we look at this transportation and how it's changed throughout the years, it has evolved and will continue to evolve in many, many ways. From the horse-drawn carriage to the trolley, train, to the ambulance / hearse, to the old winged hearses that also carried the flowers, to today's hearses, which are motorized, Cadillacs, Lincolns. But truthfully, what we're looking at is even something different. And people will look back someday after we've got these electric cars, and they're going to think, they used gas-powered cars to transport people. So it will continue to evolve. It's very important that we understand how the importance of funeral transportation and how it has evolved through the years. Thank you. I appreciate you listening.